So a woman's life in the 15th century doesn't seem to have been that much different to what it is like now 600 years later. Now why does that not surprise me? And so today's book is The Lady of the Rivers by Philippa Gregory. Philippa Gregory is a particular favourite of mine. I adore historical fiction and I really like her as a writer. She talks about these women who are adjacent to major historical figures or historical events. And I do know that she likes to take artistic license where necessary, but I don't kind of like to spoil my own illusions. It's fiction after all. Now I'm tackling her Tudor series. This first book is written about the days leading up to the events that were just before the start of the Tudor reign. And this story revolves around Jacquetta, who we first see as a teenager when she's gone to visit her uncle, who has a very interesting prisoner, Joan of Arc. And of course, as you would expect with two young girls, they become firm friends, and this friendship only ends on the day that Joan is burnt at the stake. Jacquetta has the gift of second sight, and this brings her to the attention of John, the Duke of Bedford. But he dies very early into the marriage, leaving Jacquetta a very wealthy woman. And knowing that very shortly the king will announce who she is next to marry, she decides to preempt this. She's fallen in love with John's squire Richard, so she marries him, saying, "We're not going to ask for permission, we'll ask for forgiveness later on." So they return to England under a bit of a cloud because of this disgraceful position they took, and they're wanting to become farmers and raise a passel of children. But the quiet lives did not eventuate because Henry VI asked her to go back to France and escort Margaret of Anjou, his bride-to-be, back to England. And of course they become friendly, and Margaret insists that Jacquetta become one of her ladies, which seems to have been a full-time occupation. I like to think of it as a precursor to working mothers. Now in this book, Philippa uses the moment of Henry VI seeing Margaret and her lover having an emotional moment for him to have a mental breakdown, and he enters into what is known as the sleeping sickness period. He actually slept for 18 months and he was treated like a baby, where he was cleaned and fed and watered. It's a well-known event when I went back and looked at it, and no one seems to have an answer as to why it happened and what actually woke him back up. But I like the version that Philippa has written. The country starts to fall apart as he is in the middle of his long sleep, and this begins the War of the Roses. Now there is so much plot in this novel that I could just keep going because, you know, love it. Why wouldn't you? So what I found most intriguing while I was reading this was how much the nobles don't have lives that they can call their own. They are at the beck and call of the monarch. And Jacquetta is often just usually having given birth to another baby regularly like clockwork every year. And so then she's expected to go back to court to be with Margaret literally the day after that's all finished. And meanwhile, her own children are being raised by a variety of servants. And then what happens is when the children reach sort of like 13 or so, they're sent off to other noble families where they can learn really important stuff. Having the heir fall in love with them so that they can marry them kind of explains why certain elements of the UK society have been very keen on boarding schools, because this is kind of just what's been happening for centuries. But as a working mother, Jacquetta had no choice but to be there for her employer stroke friend. And as all things happen, the monarchy is overthrown and Jacquetta ends up being thrust into the new ruling family when her daughter marries the son. And so starts the Tudor line, which is where we get Henry VIII and Elizabeth I. So this is a really important part of English history that no one really knows about, and they certainly really don't know much about Jacquetta. And I do believe the adage that in order to understand what's going on now, you do need to understand history, or at least have a passing knowledge of what history has been, because usually it tells you what is happening now and, more importantly, why it's happening. And so because I'm rereading my library in order to downsize it, I do it with the intention of hopefully enjoying the books like I did with this one, and then making the decision as to whether to keep it or not. But this one, it's going to be a let go. I do have over 670 books to work my way through, and even though I loved it, it is time for it to go, and I'm going to do the noble thing of letting it go so that another reader who loves history can find it, or even one who wants to think about liking history can find it. Sometimes the written review says a whole lot more than I can possibly say in the video, and this is actually one of those. So you can subscribe and read the full review for free on my Substack, where you'll be able to get the written review sent directly into your email. The link for my Substack is in the comments below. And I'll see you next time.